Let's talk about BC after this is over.
Oh, yeah.
What a mess.
Welcome, everybody, to our Red Sox review. I'm here with my co-host, Dick Reedy.
How are you, Frank?
How are you, Dick? We're here a day before pitchers and catchers are to report to spring training for what we hope is a better year this year than the last two. And so, Dick, we have had I want to call it a shakeup, but some major changes in the Red Sox administration.
No question about it.
So maybe you want to start this program off with a little bit of what's going on in the Red Sox front office.
I'll be glad to. Well, I think the Red Sox made a number of changes. We've read about the players that they acquired and who let go and stuff like that. However, they made some major changes in their administration. Sam Kennedy is now the president of the Red Sox, and Larry Lucchino is down over the Providence with Pawtucket. He tried Providence, and now he's going to go back to Pawtucket. But anyway, they also brought on this guy named Bannister, whose father was a pitcher at one time for the White Sox, I believe.
That's correct. They had a big article about him in the Boston Globe.
Okay.
He was a pitcher, yes. Floyd Bannister.
Floyd Bannister,
left-handed
yes.
pitcher.
I remember him.
Right.
And so they made those changes. They were big changes. And then they signed not Farrell, but they signed Lovolo for a period of time, which he was a guy who was just a bench coach, and now he is kind of a super bench coach based upon the salary they're giving him. And I don't know how Farrell feels about that. He must have put on a good face about it, but
He has to.
in the back of his mind, he's going to be thinking, what's going to happen here?
He's got somebody right over his shoulder here.
Yeah.
But they kept Lovolo because I understand that they paid him what a first-year manager would be earning in the big leagues in order to keep him.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, so I think what's happening here is, Dick, is that if the Red Sox have another very poor year and are out of the race by, let's say, the All-Star game, that I think Farrell is only here because of what happened to him last year in his health, and they brought him back, but I think he's on a short rope.
Yeah, I believe that as well. I think if he doesn't perform, get the club to perform up to standards, even with all the changes Dombrowski has made, I think he is on very thin ice.
I agree he's on thin ice. Dombrowski seems to have made some big moves this year too, Dick, and
Yeah, he did.
in terms of where he wants to go with this team. And obviously, the biggest of the big moves was bringing in David Price.
Yeah, no question
But
about it.
big money, Dick, $230 million for 7 years. And as we know, I don't think you're going to get the caliber pitcher that he is right now for 7 more years.
Right.
History has told us that it doesn't work. And all we have to do is look at C.C. Sabathia from the Yankees,
Sure.
who signed a 7-year contract averaging $24 million a year. And basically, C.C. has not been a pitcher the last 2 or 3 years with the Yankees.
That's true. I mean, he's had some other off-field problems.
He had some issues with drinking and alcoholism, etc.
His weight was another issue.
Yes, he's right. But, Dick, these pitchers are not winning 20 games, 18 games, and blowing teams away at age 37 and 38 years old.
Not anymore.
And Price is 31 years old. So,
Yeah.
So you
Big
get 4
guys.
year out of him, you're lucky.
Just like Sabathia, he's tall. He's 6'6".
Right.
You know, we got a great fastball, and he may be good for 2 or 3 years. Who
Right.
knows?
But, you know, the Red Sox aren't going to win just because Price is here. I mean, how many wins can he have? And if you look at his record, he has been with very good teams in his career. He was
Sure.
with Tampa Bay, was a very good team. And then he was with a tremendous hitting team last year, the Toronto Blue Jays. And he won 9 in a row with Toronto when he got traded from Detroit. And they were scoring an average of 8 runs per game for him. So that, if you can't win with 8 runs per game, not that he's not a good pitcher. He had a 2.45 ERA. So I think he'll bring the fans back to Fenway. And I think that was one of the moves that the Red Sox had to make because, as I think we all know, the Red Sox own 80% of NESN.
True.
And television, as we all know, generates its income from advertising revenue. And if you don't get the attendance, the advertisers aren't going to advertise.
Oh, that's
So
for sure.
I think they've brought it back a lot of interest this year by bringing Price into the fold.
That's true.
And that's not a lot of money when you think of the revenue that they generate. And they're paying them $230 million over 7 years. They generate much more than that in their TV revenue and their ticket sales.
Yeah, plus the price of products in the stadium itself. They're not cheap.
They're not cheap. They're the highest concession pricing in baseball.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, with these changes, I think with Lucchino out, I think there's going to be a little less tension in that ballpark because Lucchino was a very good guy. He did a lot of work for a lot of major league teams with San Diego, with Baltimore, built new ballparks, but he seemed to be a take control guy with the Red Sox. And I think that rubbed some people the wrong way.
Well, he had, for as smart as he is, he rubbed some people the wrong way. And that didn't go, I mean, we saw Theo Epstein.
Theo Epstein, there he is with the Cubs now.
Sure, and he's doing well with the Cubs.
He's doing well with the Cubs.
Maybe we'll talk a little bit about the Cubs.
Yes.
But Theo's doing quite well, and there are other people who may not have come to the Red Sox based upon Lucchino's personality.
Right.
You
So
know?
I think they brought younger people in with Kennedy. Keeping Lavolo back, he's only in his, I think he's 50, 51 years old.
Yeah, he's fairly young.
He's fairly young. So I think with this new Bannister guy that they brought in, I guess he's going to try to perform some miracle paperwork, I guess, if you want to call it that, with the Red Sox regarding their pitching. He's going to be all through the minor league system as well as the major league system.
Well, one of the key factors they say is that he did a lot of work with Rich Hill.
Yes.
And Rich Hill is now signed, I think, with
Oakland.
Okay. He's with Oakland. He did a very good job for us at the end of the year. Of course, there was no pressure on him.
Right.
But other than self-imposed if he wanted to make a good showing. But he did a great job while he was here. But I compared him what he had been before to when he came with us. I mean, his overall performance really changed.
It really did. He came from the ashes
Yeah.
in the last 2 months of the season.
Yeah, it was
And
incredible.
He did very well, yeah. I happen to know him through my in-laws, and he's a wonderful guy.
Yeah.
He really is, yes. He's a wonderful guy.
I'd like to see those good things happen to guys like
Yes,
that.
we do. Yes, we do. I've also seen what's happening with the number 2 pitcher, as the Red Sox will call him now, Buchholz.
Buckles.
Yep. He's got $12.5 million on the books this year, and the Red Sox offered him an extension, and he turned it down.
Oh.
So what does that tell us, Dick?
He's overly optimistic.
He's overly optimistic, right? Because we know every year he breaks down halfway through the season, but he turned down an extension on his contract. He's
Yeah.
31 years old as well,
That's true.
and the Red Sox do have an option next year to
On
keep
him.
him on
Yeah.
Buchholz, to keep him. But as we all know, pitching wins in baseball in the long term. And I think the Red Sox need to have a big turnaround in their pitching staff this year.
Oh, sure.
Because really the only change they have is in the starting rotation is Price. Because you got Buchholz, you got Porcello, you got Rodriguez, who was okay, and I think that Price may help this guy, Eduardo Rodriguez, who was a rookie last year, basically, that
Right,
came
he
up.
was.
And I think he may be helping him a little bit in terms of his control, because he was streaky in his control last year with the Red Sox.
Plus the fact that, from what I read, Price is the guy who is a very good teammate. So he's going to try to work with Rodriguez to help make him a better pitcher. He's a great pitcher right now, and with all the tools he has, but he's got to get that winning attitude, and
Right.
Price might help in that respect.
And then we have Joe Kelly, who has a very good fastball and was a decent pitcher, but he was all over the map last year, Joe, with the Red Sox, down to the minor leagues. He came back. He was very inconsistent, and so the Red Sox pitching, starting pitching, I think needs to come around from where they were last year. But they did shore up the bullpen this year. Yes, they did. They brought in Kimbrel from San Diego, who last year was 39 out of 43 save attempts last year.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, and he was very good with the San Diego Padres. And now you still have Koji, who I think will be the setup man this year,
Yeah.
unless Kimbrel falls off the cliff, which hopefully no. And then they brought in this guy Smith from Seattle.
True, yeah.
So he has been a pretty good middle relief pitcher or late inning
Tremendous
relief pitcher.
fastball.
Tremendous fastball, right. And so the bullpen was their downfall last year. Because I think, Dick, as we know, pitchers have pitched 6 innings today, and that's it. They're all in this pitch count.
Yeah.
They're all in the pitch count. So I think the Red Sox bullpen last year really got burned out late in the season because they were throwing in guys like Tazawa, who pitched more innings than any other relief pitcher last year in baseball in the American League. Yeah,
It's out of the show.
right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
At the end of the year, he was getting belted.
He was. They put him on the shelf the last 3-4 weeks
Yeah.
of the season, I believe. Yeah, he was good, and so their bullpen has been shored up, so hopefully, I think with the pitching that they have, and if they can turn around the starting pitching, this bullpen is meaningless unless the starting pitching can perform. It really is, in my opinion.
That's for sure.
Yes. Let's talk a little bit about some of the positional players, two of which last year, in my opinion, and I think in yours, didn't perform.
No way about it. And I'm saying, I think in a way that we're fortunate that Dombrowski's not a guy who's going to sit and watch and watch and watch. He's going to ask them to perform. If they perform, that's going to be fine. If they don't, they'll go someplace, but they're not going to stay with us.
Big contracts with these guys, Dick.
Yeah,
That's the
that's
key, trying to move these guys. It's impossible to move them, I think, with the money that they're being paid. They both had roughly $90 million
Yeah, it's a lot of
contracts.
dough.
Yeah, and that's a lot of dough. And, when you have Ramirez at first base now, I'm really concerned.
People say, well, he was a shortstop. He was a pretty good shortstop when he came up with the Red Sox. He should have all the tools to do the ground balls and what have you. But first base is a little bit different.
There's a lot of movement with your feet
Yeah.
and being in position.
There's no way you can put him at third base because he doesn't have the wheels,
Correct.
And so that's another factor. So now he's stuck at first base, and it's a retraining. Whether he has the gumption to really train, I'm not sure. I never thought the guy had drive.
Right. He doesn't have
Or
drive.
passion for.
He didn't show any last year, certainly not. And so the Red Sox have kept Travis Shaw, who played pretty well for last year with the Red Sox. They
Yeah, he
hit
did.
about 16, 17 home runs, and he did pretty well. So they've kept him. And I think what they might have in mind, if they can't do anything with Ramirez, is we know that this is Ortiz's swan song.
Sure.
This is his last year. And that being said, I think if Ramirez cannot perform in the field adequately, and they can't dump him anywhere, that he would be their DH next year. Where else are you going to put him?
I don't know.
Right, there's no other place to put him.
Mm-hmm.
So they're taking a shot here, hoping that he'll turn around, and if not, and he can hit, relatively consistently, I think they may use him as a DH for next year. And that's why Shaw has been kept around as well.
Well, I think they have many other alternatives. So they got Shaw. David Ortiz goes. They get Ramirez. I don't know.
That's it.
Yeah.
That's it. As
The guy at third doesn't seem to be a guy who would be a DH candidate.
No, Sandoval, no, I don't think he'd be a DH candidate, no. And so I guess Sandoval says he's lost 20, 25 pounds. That's fine, but he still has to swing the bat,
Yeah.
and he didn't perform last year.
Well, losing that weight, does he lose power?
Right, exactly. But looking at his history with San Francisco, once Sandoval, he had a lifetime average with San Francisco around 272. And last year he hit 256. And he had two good World Series with them.
Yeah, he did.
And that's what put him out in the limelight, was his 2 good World Series with San Francisco. But he was a big disappointment last year as well as Ramirez. And speaking of all of this and the team that they show up right now, last year the Red Sox were 5th in runs scored in the major leagues. We would never believe that.
That's right.
They were 5th in the major leagues in runs scored, but the pitching was horrendous, both bullpen and starting.
Yeah, you're right. It didn't measure up.
It did not measure up, no. Your thoughts on the 2 guys last year that, in our opinion, played up to their potential and maybe more than their potential, Betts and Bogarts?
Yeah. Well, Bogarts, I think Bogarts is becoming, obviously mature as he stays in the game. He understands what it takes to become a major leaguer and to be consistent about that. He's around the guys like Ortiz and who are telling him, hey, look, these are the kind of things you have to do. And I think he's picked up on that. And Mookie Betts, I mean, this guy is just phenomenal.
He's played very well.
Yeah.
He played very well. But he is, the Red Sox, I think, at this point, are weak in the outfield. Unless I think they're going to put Betts in right field and put Bradley in center field,
yeah.
who has not really hit the ball well for them at all. He had a hot streak last year for like 3 weeks, but he's not been living up to his potential. But defensively, he's as good as any center fielder.
Best in the majors.
Best in the majors, right.
I was surprised, though, Frank, we're talking about Bradley. I think he hit 15 home runs.
Yes.
And for a guy his size, he's not that big.
No.
He had some pop in the bat, and I said, wow, that kind of surprised me. This is after he came back from Pawtucket. And I figured that the Sox, when they sent him down, they were going to write him off and maybe even trade him. But he came back up, and he played well. He hit the ball extremely well. And then he kind of tailed off at the end of the year.
He hit the ball well for like 3 weeks to a month. And they thought he really would find his way. But, excuse me. But he's got to be consistent this year.
No question about it.
And the other question mark is in left field with this kid Castillo, who signed a 5-year, $72 million contract at age 27.
I know.
He's been around now a year, almost 2 years.
He was out of ball for a year
Right,
or two.
and he was out of baseball before that for a year or two. And so he's going to be playing left field. So those are 2 big question marks in the outfield.
The only advantage the Sox have is if Castillo kind of flounders away, they got this guy Chris Young, as you know, for the Yankees.
Right, but Chris Young, according to what I see, Dick, is only a hitter against left-handed pitching.
Yeah, I mean, but he is an alternative that they didn't have before, so he's a possibility.
Yeah, he's the 4th outfielder.
Yeah, he's the 4th outfielder.
So we have, in my opinion, 4 players here who need to really step it up this year, and so we need to get Sandoval, Ramirez, Bradley, and Castillo
Yeah.
to step it up. So there's 4 out of the starting 9 of 8. The other question mark, I don't think it's a question mark, is Ken Ortiz had his best year in 10 years last year. His best productive year in 10 years last year. Can he do it again for the final time?
I don't know. I read an article a couple of days ago that talked about Ortiz, and he said he is in the best shape he's been in 10 years.
Mm-hmm.
I said, oh, my God. I mean, what does that mean?
Yeah, I know. Let's hope it means a lot of production this year.
Yeah, I hope so.
In terms of production for him. But he really is the only power hitter in that lineup.
Yeah.
When you talk about power, to be consistent with 25 home runs or 25, 100 RBIs. Does Ramirez have that capability? He does, but we haven't seen it.
But Ramirez, people don't seem to realize that Ramirez is a fairly big person. He's 6'2", 200. Well, last year he was about 240 pounds. That's too heavy. But if he drops down to 220, with that swing and that size, he may add some juice to the lineup.
He should be adding some juice. If you remember last year, in the first month of the season, I think he had, 7 or 8 home runs in 1 month?
Yeah.
And then he tailed off dramatically after he ran into the
Yeah,
wall.
he did. I mean, throughout his career, he has led whatever league he's been in, he led the league in doubles. I didn't see that last year at all.
Didn't happen.
And so he had some doubles, but my gosh, not the kind that you would expect.
No.
That he had previous years.
Did not produce. You're absolutely right. Did not produce. So, we all jumped up in glee when we see David Price come to this team. But when you analyze this team as we're talking about right now, there's a lot of question marks. There's 4 big question marks. Is Pedroia the Pedroia of old?
I don't know.
We don't know. We haven't seen him really in the last 3 years come up to the expectations that we thought we were going to see.
That's true.
We haven't seen it.
Those injuries have hurt him
Yes,
significantly.
he had injuries, etc. I mean, we'd love to have 9 players like him hustling and working as hard as he does. That we cannot take away from him. But we don't know where Pedroia can do any better than he's been doing or not. So, I mean, if you look at this Red Sox and look at it from a positioned situation, those are the starting players that we're looking at. Now we got 2 catchers. Swihart did pretty well last year, but defensively, Dick, I think he's
very weak.
He's weak. And I guess this Vasquez is still not going to be ready until the middle of the season. They're going to put him in Pawtucket, I think.
Right, well, to stick with Swihart for a second, I mean, I would be irritated at the number of pass balls he had. That was just not good at all.
He had a lot of pass balls.
He didn't hold the glove the right way. He didn't get down and like he should have. But okay, so now he's learned hopefully his lesson, and now we got. But Hannigan,
They're keeping Hannigan.
Yeah.
They're going to keep him because I think he's a well, with Vasquez playing in Pawtucket, they're going to probably keep him down there for at least a half the season or close to half the season to see what he can do in terms of rehabilitating himself as a hitter and as a catcher.
well, that takes some of the pressure off him by being down in Pawtucket,
Right, it does.
and not have to be up here in the major leagues trying to prove that he is the #1 catcher.
Right.
And so that gives him some relief by going down there.
He is a very good defensive catcher.
No question about it.
He's very good defensively. So
He's only what, 23?
23, yeah, he's only 23. And as you know, the Red Sox, the catching position in the past has been an issue with them. Now they got two pretty good catchers here. And I'm not sure they're going to keep both of these guys. At this point, they will. But if Vasquez can play, what do you do with Swihart? He's not a bad catcher, I mean, and I'm sure he'll improve defensively.
Well, the pitching staff has become, has a lot of confidence in Hannigan. You know,
They do.
He's an experienced catcher.
Veteran player.
He knows the game, and kind of like Ross was when he was with us.
Yes,
earlier.
right.
He's now in Chicago.
He's now in Chicago,
Yeah.
right.
And,
Right, he's trying to get Lester to stop, picking off guys at first base. Lester had more stolen bases against him than any pitchers in major
Oh
leagues.
my God! With
Yes.
all the talent, and look what.
Yep, and he can't throw the ball to
can't
first
do it.
base.
He's like that guy Matt Young we had.
That's correct. Couldn't throw the ball to first
Couldn't
base
throw the
either.
ball to first base.
And we had a second baseman in the American League, Knobloch,
Chuck Knobloch,
who
yeah.
couldn't throw the ball to first base either. Amazing, huh? Amazing. Let's just take another look, Dick, at where we look at the Red Sox in terms of pitching here. I mean, there's a couple of guys here that showed a little bit of life last year. They have a left-handed pitcher named Johnson.
Brian
Johnson,
Yeah.
right, who showed a little bit of life for 2 or 3 starts, but I think he has a lot of potential, and but he will end up in Pawtucket for the moment. And I think the other guy that we're looking at now with 2 left-handed pitchers, you got this Bobby Ross, who I think will be one of the left-handed pitchers that the Red Sox will keep in the bullpen this year. And I think Smith will be the other guy he can throw the ball 100 miles an hour. If we look at the major leagues today and we look at these relief pitchers, unless you can throw the ball 100 miles an hour, you are having a little bit of an issue. So-
That's a good point in a way, because even these guys, you say, "Wow, this guy's throwing 95."
Yeah.
These major leaguers
They can catch up to it.
They swat that ball
Right.
right on the infield.
Right, they can catch up to it. Okay, let's just look. We got about 3 or 4 minutes left, Dick. Let's just look at this American League in terms of where we think the Red Sox may end up in terms of the teams in the American League. The Yankees have not done anything really dramatically this
Right.
year,
True.
but they got a huge payroll, Dick, and they're not spending big money this year. They didn't go after big money. They got $26 million with Rodriguez. They got Beltran for over $20 million. I mean, I just think that they got to get rid of some of this payroll. The Yankees are I think they're in trouble because of the monies that they've spent in the past. They got Sabathia at $24 million. There's another guy there, and they got Teixeira. They got 4 guys that are over the $18 million mark, 18 to 26 million, and none of these guys are really, the future of the Yankees, and so they're not spending any money. But I think the Yankees bullpen is pretty good.
Yeah,
and they'll be up there.
It is pretty good. They got that guy Sampson.
Yes.
He's an extremely good pitcher.
Right. I think they're going to be up there, and I think Detroit. They're not in the East, but I think Detroit helped themselves out this year, defensively and as well as at the bat.
Yep.
So Tampa Bay, I don't know. Baltimore, I don't know. Toronto can still swing the bat, so they could be in the mix. But I think if we can get some of these question marks to the positive side, I think the Red Sox will make a run for it this year in terms of where they end up. Will they finish? Will they make the playoffs? There's a lot of conjecture. It's about 50-50 that they will or they won't. But I think it all depends on these 4 that we talked about, if they can produce, and hopefully Bogarts and Betts can, repeat what they did last year, have a replica of last year.
And if Pedroia can play like he's played in the past, that's a big deal.
Right, so we have a lot of question marks here in terms of where the Red Sox are. If everything falls into place like it did in 2013, and whoever figured that team to win, be in the let alone the World Series and be a World Series champion,
sure, yeah.
whoever figured them to be anywhere that year. But everything fell into place that year. So we need some of this to fall into place this year, and we'll see what happens. I just don't think, Dick, that we ought to take too much stock in what happens in spring training. I think that's a tryout period for a lot of these people.
I would just tell our audience that don't hold those news reports.
Yes.
They're on their way to the World Series.
Right. And, okay, we got a couple of minutes left, so I just think that, the news reports want to make everything sound rosy. They bring on these guys in interviews, and everything is rosy, and you never see a negative word about anybody. So, yes, folks, don't listen to all of that stuff and say, okay, we're in, because that's not the case. So we'll probably see you folks again, probably halfway through the season.
Sure.
And hopefully we'll have some positive outlook for the remainder of the season. And let's hope the Red Sox are in the hunt by the All-Star game.
I'm looking forward to it. I hope
Yes.
you all are, and let's see where it goes.
We are. Nice to have you here, Dick.
Thank you.
Thanks. Thank you, Dick. And we'll see you folks come to the All-Star time. Thank you very much.